for in this our session. I would like to invite first Ildus Rafikov, and then Dr. Mehmet Fatih Ulu. Could you please come on the stage? And we have Adeel Malik, and he might be joining us online, but we'll see later in the session at the moment. So for the first presentation, I would like to invite Ildus Rafikov for the topic titled Rethinking Economic Independence in the Muslim World. Would you have any presentation? Yes. Please, come on the stage, floor is yours. So you have 20 minutes for your presentation.
Yes. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, again, thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to speak again. So I spoke yesterday on the idea of Islamization and the integration of knowledge. But just last night I was informed and asked to also help out with this session because one of the presenters could not present. But anyway, so the topic is something that I'm interested in. It's the rethinking economic independence in the Muslim world. I mean, this is rethinking Islamic economics and finance. This is something that we have been talking the whole morning and day today. And it's a very important topic. What do we do? I mean, we kind of live in a condition where we are in a certain system. We are living in a certain system, and how do we proceed? How do we maybe challenge it, or how do we respond to the challenges? Now, so I'll be just, this is a very brief kind of brief talk. And so I'll just talk about the landscape, current landscape, what do we have, and then I'll just bring you just one example, very brief example from Malaysia, and the strategies for change, what I think could be good strategies for us to consider, and the future directions. But of course, these are related mostly to my understanding of the issue of money and finance, and also the issue of education, economic education. Now, sorry, you cannot see here. This thing just blocks. Anyway, so the point of independence, economic independence. So when we talk about economic independence, we just we don't mean like closed economy completely, like North Korea, for example. So they are seemingly independent, but of course it's in a very negative way. But on the other hand, we can be economically independent, but still have internal capacity. All right, internal capacity for production, for education, for production of knowledge in different areas, and really having intellectual autonomy in the economic thinking, and of course the strategic policy making. And this is independence in policy making. And one of the problems we have today is, of course, as a part of the international financial systems, especially the banking system, financial system, they have to be part of the global financial system, and they have to kind of consider what's going on in the world. So there is a reliance on if we talk about the economic perspective, the economic education perspective, there is an over reliance on neoclassical economics. And today, this morning, Prof. Asad Zaman, he talked extensively about it. what is wrong with the modern economic education or the economics per se as a discipline. And so we can say that in the economic education today, there is an over-reliance on neoclassical economics. I mean, most of the textbooks are written from that specific point of view. So if you take any textbook in the Muslim world, including in Malaysia, where I studied, so they usually use this approach, neoclassical economic approach. And so, how do we look at the landscape right now? So, what is the problem with it? So, there are two things. As I mentioned, there are two things. Number one is intellectual dependency. So there is a limited framework, and which is dominated by neoclassical thought. But as we have heard this morning, there are actually six types of economic education today, which is more or less successful. Among them are, let's say, green economics or behavioral economics, institutional economics, and even including donut economics is another area. So these are there are some approaches, some methodologies which are more or less successful, but overall we can see that there is some form of intellectual dependency on the neoclassical perspective. And then there is an over-reliance on external factors, and so as I said, we have internal actors like banks, central banks, also all the commissions and the other institutions, local institutions, which are more or less they're dependent on the overall global financial system and the thought that is being produced there, and all the policy frameworks that exist today. And then there is also of course, the effect of multinational corporations, and we do know that they have an effect on local policies, because there are multinational corporations. They are biggest lobby groups in not only in the US but also in local economies as well. And so there is a reliance on multinational corporations, and of course the global financial institutions. And so the IMF and World Bank are very important institutions, global institutions that really have a very strong effect on domestic policies, on domestic economic frameworks. And so these two things are very important in my view. So I'm not going to go into more details, because there are many other aspects. But in my opinion, there are this intellectual dependency and also reliance on external actors are two important core challenges that we have to consider. And one more thing which is also extremely important in my understanding, and this is what I think Professor Mohammed Hamoud talked about this also just an hour ago, I think, about the money. Understanding the nature of money and credit creation. It's a critical issue, and how money is created, and what is the effect of money creation on the economies. And so, whenever commercial banks, they issue loans, they basically create money out of nothing. So again, let me repeat it. When commercial banks issue loans, they create new money out of nothing. So, and there are theories about it, and there is a theory on financial intermediation, which has been refuted, and also today, some economists, they say that the majority, or the theory that is working today is basically credit creation theory of money creation, money issuance. And so, and the impact of this important thing, I mean, the creation of money, creation of credit, is that it shapes the economic sectors. And the problem with the inflation we have is, it affects the inflation in a way that the credit allocation really determines where does the money go. Does it go towards the speculation, or does it go towards some productive purposes? So this is production versus speculation. And so this is where we see the credit creation and credit allocation. When it goes towards speculative functions like real estate, for example, then it creates this cycle of inflation that continues. And so really understanding the issue of money creation and issuance of money and how it really affects the economic sectors, this is another extremely important aspect that needs to be understood by economists, by us, by students, by professors of economics, and also, of course, the policymakers. Now, monetary policy constraints. Of course, this in terms of policy, we often limit ourselves to very narrow monetary tools. Usually, it is about tweaking interest rates and also open market operations. But there are other more creative or context-specific measures. And you see, reliance on global financial institutions and multinational corporations can mean that key decisions are influenced by external conditions and priorities that often do not align with the long-term development goals of developing countries. And this external dependence perpetuates the this cycle that we look outward for solutions. And in many countries, the individuals and companies, corporations, and also the governments, they're trying to look for outside forces, to bring the foreign direct investments, for example. And so just looking outside, instead of trying to look at the issues creatively and look for internal instruments. And so among the internal instruments, of course, we also know that the central banks, they have a very strong position in any country. I mean, they are the ones who control the issuance of money, they control the banking industry. And broadly, they control the monetary policy and enforce the monetary policy in the economies. And so, why it is important is that if we see how the central banks, they only use certain instruments like interest rate reduction or increase and the open market operations, there are other things. And one of the most powerful things that was really instrumental after the Second World War, and also any time when there is a crisis, economic crisis, financial crisis, they have the power for so-called moral suasion or window guidance. I mean, that's another term that is used. And so they are able to really guide the banks, commercial banks, to lend to some productive purposes, I mean, to some industries. So be it in agriculture, in IT services, or anything domestic. And so there is internally, there is a possibility, or there is a power in central banks to direct credit towards productive purposes rather than the speculative purposes. And so, in terms of, there is a kind of misperception of debt and money issuance. And so, with the banks at the center of the money creation process, the type of lending they undertake, it really shapes our economic trajectory. And without proper guidance and policy frameworks, this lending can be skewed towards quick profits rather than productive long-term investments within the financial system or by the financial system and also internal investors. And by understanding this, the mechanisms of money creation, we can leverage this mechanism. And instead of condemning ourselves to market forces, the central banks really can influence the credit allocation to achieve balanced growth and increased resilience. So basically the monetary policy is important, and the central banks, they can use not only the usual interest rate instrument and the open market operations instrument, but also moral suasion. And let's look at the Malaysian experience very quickly. And so one historical example that illustrates the power of independent economic thinking comes from Malaysia under the leadership of Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, who in 1980s he started the Malaysia Look East policy. So that was specific Look East policy, which broke away from the traditional reliance on Western economic prescriptions. And they drew lessons from the countries like Japan, emphasizing industrial development and technology transfer. But also another point is that in 1997 there was a Asian financial crisis, and in response to that crisis, what they did is they just rejected the IMF program, and basically they said we can fix this problem ourselves. And we do not need foreign investments or foreign loans, and that usually comes with certain preconditions. But also, even though it was this policy was criticized, Malaysia recovered very quickly, and just like others in like Thailand and other countries in the neighborhood, and by exercising a degree of economic sovereignty and resisting the one-size-fits-all solutions, Malaysia managed to demonstrate that that they have the alternative approach do work. And this example is not about just replicating Malaysian policies wholesale, but just to know that there are alternatives in the world. Even within existing system, there are alternatives. And lastly, just the another, if I may, just 4 minutes should be mission. All right. New economic thinking. So what does it include? In my thinking, there are two approaches. First of all, in the economics discipline, I think it is time to move beyond just simply economics as it is, like from neoclassical, or just looking at it specifically as economists would look, but use a kind of transdisciplinary approach, even though the interdisciplinary approach is already in force and is being used by scholars, by professors in many parts of the world. But this is a kind of phenomena-based approach, which integrates ethics, political economy, and development studies, and we try to incorporate diverse schools of thought and within the real world context. And so understanding all of this, then it's possible to. What we need to do is also to educate or provide the financial literacy for policymakers, for just the ordinary citizens, for the public. People need to understand how really money is created, and what is the process of money creation in today's economies, and what is the problem with that money creation. And also that kind of thing, that kind of knowledge empowers the informed decision making on directing the strategic or directing credit to strategic sectors. And so when it comes to the education, there is okay. Okay, so when it comes to the reforming education, so we can change, we can relook at the curriculum. Again, we can take a look at the transdisciplinary approach and methodologies, and also take kind of maqasidi, or the objectives-oriented, purpose-oriented approach to economics, especially from the Quranic, from the revelation point of view. And lastly, I think for the future direction, of course, the integration of Islamic finance, it cannot be done wholesale in just in one go by, let's say, by either military means or through parliament, but it needs to be gradual, because we have the examples of Pakistan and Sudan that try to implement this Islamic banking and finance wholesale, just removing the interest rates completely and just imposing the Sharia-based kind of view. And we know that it was not really, the result was not really good. And so there is this, but anyway, in any case, there needs to be a proper oversight to prevent unchecked credit expansion. And so the result of directed credit, if we manage to do it in a thoughtful manner, in a correct manner, then it can create its own competition, it can create its own sectoral diversification. And so again, we need to see what is where does the debt go, or where does the credit go. So the sectors are important in order to understand which sectors are needed growth, which need to be maybe suppressed a little bit. And so it helps in sustainable development. And so the conclusion, the key takeaway here is that we true economic independence requires intellectual independence, number one. I mean, that's the most important thing, intellectual independence, and a deeper understanding of the financial system, not only on part of the academia, but also, and most importantly, by the public policy people and the people at large, by citizens. And so thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Rafikov. So, our next speaker, Professor Mehmet Fatih Ulu, will talk about how free are the free economics, free markets. So while he was preparing for his presentation, I would like to wrap up a few key points of the Dr. Ildus Rafikov's presentation. He mentioned about the main problem of the dependency of the economic system. Mainly, one of them is financial literacy in the public. We are not aware of how monetary system works, how money is created. We need to educate the society. Secondly, he proposed that we need to offer other kind of solutions beyond the neoclassical economics, and we need to use directed credit systems as a monetary policy, so we can have the change, if I'm not wrong. Okay, thank you for the presentation. So our next speaker, how free are the free markets? So we are listening, Dr. Mehmet Fatih Ulu. Teşekkür ederim.
Merhabalar.
Hello, my name is Mehmet Fatih Ulu. The organizers asked me to talk about how free are the free market dynamics. That's because I studied at the free market school, so they thought I would be able to regulate the free market. When I look at the students, I cannot talk about former politicians like Demirel because people don't know who these people are. I think some of you may remember who Demirel is. One day, journalists asked him how the economy is doing. And he said, if I answer it in one word, good. If I answer in 2 words, not good. So Demirel was a very sharp man, a very sharp politician. Maybe we can give the same answer to this question. How free are the free markets? In 1 word, it's free. In 2 words, not free. But why? Why the free market why is the free market so important for us? What are the fundamentals of the free market dynamics? And what are the main factors that cause the interruptions in these dynamics? And maybe towards the end, I will be listing a few recommendations. Why is it important for an economy to have a free market? Because in an economy, we would like to have efficiency, because efficiency would mean better welfare. Because in an economic activity, we use some resource. And for a social planner, what makes a social welfare? It is the most efficient allocation of resources to the best economic activities. Maybe you choose some priority economic activities to which you would allocate resources. So when the market is free to enter and exit, when you have competition, the market can automatically do itself without requiring government and state intervention. This is called creative destruction. What does that entail? Someone may be already dominating the market, but an innovative actor may enter the market later and destroy the other brand who is already active in the market and ensure better allocation of resources. So we always ask when the next creative, destructive actor will come and make the market more efficient. So when the market is free to enter and exit, this is what we expect to happen. But we know that the human nature tends to maintain power. So when someone is dominating the market, when someone becomes the monopoly in a market, or when someone establishes barriers for newcomers, this may disrupt the free market dynamics, and the public will suffer. For one thing, the public resources will not be used efficiently, and secondly, the products will be manufactured at higher costs. So what are the ideal conditions in a free market? It is full competition. There are 3 main factors, components in a free market. The first one is the full competition. What does that mean? All companies compete under the same terms, and all prices are set according to demand and supply. The second component in the free market is access to information. although information is not tangible, it is power. Someone who has the information, who has the knowledge about the supply or demand or anything else, they will have the power. And that knowledge will give them an advantage.
Değişen ekonomik görünümümüzde de yani
In our
bilgi artık
changing economic outlook, knowledge has become even more important. And access to knowledge. When
olanlar asimetrik bir
everyone cannot access knowledge on equal basis, those who
bir engel olur.
have access to knowledge will have an asymmetrical advantage, and that will prevent competition. And the third component is the free entry and exit.
Aynen piyasalara giriş ve çıkış serbest olma.
When you don't only when you have free entry and exit
Aslında bunlar
in a market, you can talk about a free market.
Koca var. Cengiz Karakoça'nın
Cengiz Kalle Koca
doktora tezini kitaplaştırmış.
wrote a book about
Medine piyasasının
the market in Medina. He talks about the main principles of the markets in Medina.
buraya düşen
He listed three components. Two of them are quite relevant. He said in Medina market, no one could hold a corner. The person who arrived the earliest to the marketplace would get the best place, and they would make the best sales during the day. The next day, if someone else comes earlier, they will get that best location and they will make the best sales.
piyasada köşenin tutulamaması
So
sürdürülmesinin önemli bir unsur.
when someone cannot hold one corner forever, its market will have free competition. And you do not have, when you don't have to pay anything when entering or exiting the market, you will have a free market. And these principles are still applicable in today's world to ensure full competition in a marketplace.
Klasik modern iktisatta
In classical and modern economics, this is also confirmed.
şeyler, teorik koşullar
These theoretical terms or these theoretical
pek yakınsamıyor.
conditions are theoretical ideals, but they are not fully achieved
Yani o mihenk
always. But they set milestones for us, and we can use them as benchmarks to measure how we are doing. And they are also reference points. We believe they will give us the best results for the public, but some
bu şeyden uzak
disruptions sometimes push us away from having an atmosphere of competition.
doğası gereği hem hayatın doğası hem
That's because of the nature of life
bir neticesi olarak
and as a result of other social contracts. We have the right to property.
onun üzerinde tam bir ihtiyara
The owner of capital or property will have full discretion over that property. Although it will not ensure public good, they may allocate those properties or capitals to less efficient activities. This is due to some, we can also talk about some disruptions due to lack of access to knowledge. And another factor is the market structure. You may have monopolistic or oligopolistic structures in the markets.
bazen
Sometimes these monopolies
ortaya çıktığı gibi bazen doğal süreçler neticesinde de ortaya çıkıyor.
may emerge
Olmak.
as part of a natural process.
Ve bu durumlarda monopoli
In these conditions,
kokuşmayı ya da
the
bir
power of a monopoly brings along a kind of
ama
inefficiency.
monopol gücüne bu güce sahip olanlar bu gücün
Those who have this monopolistic power may tend to abuse it.
dijitalleşmesiyle birlikte
With the digitalization of economic activity in recent years, we have seen a new area of power that we had never seen before. In the digital domain, several companies emerged, like Google or Amazon or others.
bunlar müthiş bilgi biriktiriyorlar.
They are collecting considerable amount of data, and they can use it any way they want. They can use it when marketing their products or when pricing their products. And the information that they use is the information of people. And this is disrupting competition because they are keeping this information in their own archives and they're not sharing it with anyone else. And maybe in the next decade, this area will also be heavily regulated. Nowadays, they are collecting that information via the public internet, but maybe in the future the state will tell them that they cannot use that data. But it's a fact that this situation prevents competition, monopolistic and oligopolistic structures and asymmetrical knowledge. An informal economy. This is also a barrier to competition and free market.
Onda da kayıt dışı hareket edebilen girişimler
Some businesses operating informally may create barriers against other businesses.
daha yani kayıt dışı olmanın avantajlarını
Or they can enjoy the advantages of operating informally and prevent new enterprises and businesses. These are the disruptions that we have in the market. In addition to this, in economy, in the in a market, the state intervention is the main disruptor.
Devlet bizim, hükümetler bizim ve bunların toplumun ve ekonominin sorunlarıyla başa çıkabilmek için
When the state and government tries to deal with the problems of economy, they try to do that via political economic decisions. But every economic political decision comes with a positive outcome for a group and a negative outcome for another group. And sometimes they can do that while disrupting free market. For example, a government decides to offer incentives to a specific industry. And 10 years later, the newcomers in that industry will be less advantaged, those who are already in that industry. Maybe they are more talented, but they cannot penetrate that market, and the whole society will suffer. So, the state intervention and many political decisions and the financial institutions are like two-sided blades. When you cut with one side, you may cause damage with the other side as well. And the state intervention may disrupt the balance between the big and small players. In the past, we saw that larger companies could offer more benefits to the public. And with the state intervention, with interventions, the state may aim to eliminate some ethical and social problems, but these regulations may bring the different types of ethical and social problems, because these interventions may lead to some corruptions in their reporting processes or in their operations. So the state interventions may cause some erosion in the free market. So far, we have talked about the real sectors, the real manufacturing. But in economy, the financial sector is just as important as the real sector, because every economic decision requires you to make financial decisions as well. For example, you decide to make an investment. When you make that decision, you also need to make a financial decision. Will you do that with your equity money, or will you outsource it? So financial sector is just as important as the real sector, and the impact of the decisions on the financial sector may be even more important because it will have some repercussions on the economic side. But how free is the financial sector?
Ekonominin ikilemlerinde
We see the dilemmas and conundrums of economy. We have the financial intermediary agencies. They have different functions. Okay, I understand. I have 5 minutes.
bunun yanında bu
But
kurumların belli özellikleri
of course, these organizations and institutions should have some kind of characteristics. They should be secure organizations with capital because the government should let them. You should be trustworthy. This is the nature of the work, so you should be big. Because there is this asymmetry, because the government, the state only acknowledges the big companies. Okay, it is great to be a big company so that you will be trustworthy. So what will happen to these capital companies later on?
görülmemesi gereken kurumlar haline geliyorlar. 2020
It is like in 2007, 2008, too big to fail, it was said. Because you cannot fail them as government because they are too big.
milyarlarca dolar para bastı ve bu kurumlar
And then they were rescued. So this is a dilemma.
büyüklere o güvenceyi verdiğinizde onlar da
So
kötüye kullanıyor.
when you give this understanding, then they can use it in the other way around. So we need a balance here. As I said before, for all these economic decisions,
Maliyeti var, getiri
there is a cost, and we need to relieve it.
ölçülüyor olması.
It's appreciated all the time
Piyasalar canlı ve
because the markets are vivid. So from
burada aynı zamanda
the financial part,
finansal
yes,
sağladığı faydalardan
we have,
almak istiyoruz. Bundan
we would like to benefit from the needs, and we open ourselves to the outside world. We benefit from it, but there are also some disadvantages for capital market. We see the volatility, we see the fluctuations. As liquidity, as capital increases, it's like a
o kadar tüketmememiz gerekiyor.
cheap loan. Even though we don't have to consume, we get credits, we get loans, and we consume more than we should. And secondly,
Finansal tarafta
in the financial part, there is a lack of international regulation. Normally, the regulator is the state, but financially, if you open yourself to the world, you don't see a regulator mechanism. That is why they get the profit from you, and you are open to different funds that will use you, and they are trying to benefit from your actions, from your activities. But in their benefit function, it is not important whether you benefit or not. So,
ülke içerisinde finansal piyasadaki
in the financial market,
serbestliği engelleyen etkileri.
we see this freedom and the effect of freedom.
Anladın? Sonrasında tamam serbest piyasalar
Yes, for markets,
mükemmel bir serbest piyasa.
for free markets, we don't have the perfect one.
Olan pek çok farklı turizm
There are
fırsatı.
different
Peki ve turizm
problems,
aksaklıkları
obstacles,
azaltıp
bottlenecks.
ideal olan
So in
serbest
order to
piyasayı nasıl
decrease them,
yapabiliriz?
how
Bunun
can we
için
find
işte
the
alınabilecek
ideal
bazı
mechanism?
aksiyonlar var.
There are some actions to take.
Tüm zamanlara sari değil.
This
ama
is not,
belli
of
ülkeler
course,
yönetiliyor.
universal
Mesela bilgiye erişimdeki sorunlar,
actions.
bilgiye
First of all, we should be able to reach the data, and we should be transparent. We should facilitate to reach the data. It is really important for us to increase this
uzun bir aksiyon listesi çıkartabiliriz.
transparency. In order to reach the
Tam
data,
rekabet ortamından bizi uzaklaştıran serbest piyasa
we need to
asimetrileri şey yapılabilir.
get rid of the asymmetries. And for access to information and transparency, we should also have sustainable regulation.
Çok ince hesaplamak
We need to calculate them very meticulously, like a surgeon, because while we are creating benefits, we shouldn't harm anyone. That is why sustainable regulation design should be made, and we need to have regular updates according to the conjuncture. Okay, I have 2 minutes. And among these new technologies, we can also utilize artificial intelligence, big data, and we will be able to harness the potential of new data, and we will be able to follow up them. So we should also consider and benefit from these advantages. So we need a fair, transparent, and innovative market, fair, just market. In order to sustain this market, as Mr. Ahmet Faruk said, this is a journey. This is not a target, because we have changing circumstances, so everything is changing, so we should enjoy the journey in order to be inside of this free market, free capital. There should be a collaboration among academics, because when they all come together, it will be easier to analyze the data. The academicians can be aware of the obstacles, and academicians can support the regulators and policymakers, and we should also look at the policies for social justice and policy. Okay, thank you for your patience.
And our next speaker, Professor Adeel Malik, unfortunately couldn't make it to come here. His father was ill, as I heard. We ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give speed recovery for his father. So I just want to briefly wrap up the Prof. Mehmet Fatih's presentation. He talks about free market dynamics and tells us how, what are the main dynamics for the that we'll see in the economy. And then he suggested to, at the end of his presentation, just transparent and innovative structures for the future. And when we give regulations for the economy, and we have to consider social justice and the market efficiencies. That was the points that I've taken for notes. So now I would like to open the floor for questions. Any questions for our speakers? Is there any question or contribution or comments to that you would like to any of our speakers? I think because it's the end of the day, everybody maybe was quite tired, so that's why maybe we don't have questions at the moment. And the one good point also, I've taken my note from Prof. Mehmet Fatih's presentation. He mentioned about Prof. Cengiz Kallek's book about Medina market, which is my area, actually, Islamic economics. That's actually the regulations that we see in the Medina market still we see in even the free economy. There's a discussion in Islamic economists whether Islamic economic structure is completely, can we say, is free market or partly free market. This is another discussions, and this was good point, so he made it. Soru yok herhalde. Soru ya da katkı yoksa, so we can end the session. I would like to thank both of the presenters. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you.
Evet, kıymetli misafirlerimiz, şimdi konuşmacılarımıza bir hediyemiz olacak.
Dear guests, we are going to present gifts.
Siz fotoğrafları onunla çekin reisim. Birer tane verelim. Aha. Hocam teşekkür ederiz.
Ben teşekkür ederim.